All right, so how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? I'm actually in Boston, and I actually went to have a some tacos. Actually, I'm starving. It was late at night, and I was sitting at the end of the bar by myself, and it made me think about something. And I've been wanting to come up with kind of a unique title lately regarding this subject, and it kind of hit me. And basically, what I'm going to talk about in this podcast, or call this podcast, is I used to look at everyone as a lost soul, and then I became one. So when I was younger, my father, I've discussed this many times, owned a bar and a nightclub restaurant. And I used to see a lot of men and women come in and out. And some were alcoholics, some were not, some were drug addicts, some were not. But I learned the bar business as being a profession and a business, not as somebody as a partier. So I had a totally different perspective on that business or that industry, and even drinking in general or doing drugs. When you're on the other side of the bar, when you're in the bar, as I would call it, you have a different perspective, obviously, as when you're on the other side of the bar, which is drinking and having a good time. But I used to look at a lot of these people, even at a very young age, and say, my God, how did they become this? Or are they lost? Or, what's going on in their life that they have to come in here and even have drinks casually? Or then some would get drunk, some wouldn't, whatever the case may be. I just looked at them as lost souls. But in reality, they weren't. They were just wonderful. Actually, a lot of them were wonderful people. They were my father's regulars. But I was so young, that's just my image of them. And I think I had that image of them, that image of them, because I also, on the other end of the spectrum, had a religious mother. And then when you're going to church a lot and Bible study and all that, you're kind of being told that people that do certain things are sinning all the time, and that their lives are incomplete, or they need alcohol to complete them, or they need drugs, or they need whatever they need. And this is like in the mid-70s. But as time went on, I realized, I guess you could say my father sold his business, and then I ended up going to Florida as well. And even through my teens, my mid-teens, and all them, I was helping him with his business, which was, again, being involved with a lot of the bar industry, which was going in and out of all these different bars, restaurants, nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs. And again, I would look at all these people and say, my God, they're lost souls. And then I remember when I was turning 21, and I was kind of programmed, which is really interesting. I didn't even realize my programming back then. But I was programming myself to go to nightclubs a lot. I would hit even teen clubs with my buddies that were teenagers in Florida and in Chicago. And then I always had a fake ID, and then I'd also hit nightclubs, even though I was underage, 18, 19, 20, whatever. And I would be hitting nightclubs as well with other friends. And I thought that was cool and that was hip, and I still kind of do think that that's cool and kind of hip, I'll be honest with you. But I just thought that's what you should do on weekends, because when my father owned a club, we did that all week and weekends when I had the time to spend with him. And then when he sold that, I think I missed that to a certain degree, and I didn't know what else to do, especially when I moved to Florida when I was 18, officially. But I was going there for summer school, and summers I was spending in Florida. So most of my time was either going back and forth, sometimes to the beach, going to hotels, going to Disney, going to SeaWorld. It was in Orlando, going to South Florida, to different places as well, all over Florida, I should say. So I started to, I was going to nightclubs and things, because the truth was I liked the music, and there's a lot of girls there. And there's a lot of action. And I wasn't a big drinker. That's what I always kind of looked, and I didn't like drugs. And people sometimes ask me, how would you not, be involved in that industry and not like drugs or like drinking? The truth was, again, I looked at it as a business, and don't get me wrong, I drank, but I didn't like being buzzed. But I would drink. I would casually drink, especially when my father was in the vending business. a lot of times, especially around happy hour or later in the afternoon, bar owners, managers, bartenders, waitresses would buy you drinks, and it was kind of offensive if you didn't drink them. Sometimes I'd catch a buzz. There's no question about that. I've gone to the gym buzzed many times because after working, I'd always go to the gym. But believe me, I've caught my buzzes, believe me. But I didn't like getting drunk by any means. So, to make a long story short, I didn't realize a lot of things that I was doing, good or bad. And, excuse me, when I was going to these nightclubs, still, my teens, later teens, I was still looking at all these people, even in teen clubs and adult clubs, or whatever you want to call them, as lost souls. I'd be like, oh my God, look at these poor people. What are they doing here? Don't they have, something else to do? And I get sometimes, I'm thinking the same way they were, which is like, hey, we're all here for girls. Because back in the 80s, 90s, 70s, I guess you could say, nightclubs, when they really exploded, I would say in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and whatever, and so on, it was a cool place to go, music and women. It wasn't like it is now with social media and all the different opportunities now you have to meet women online and all these other things. So really to meet really, at least sexy women, I thought, you went to sexy places. And I kept always judging all these people and saying, oh my God, you know what I mean? And what was interesting though, if you were a friend of mine, or if you were a bar owner, bar manager, whatever the case may be, because my father was literally in hundreds of bars over the years, I didn't look at them like that. I looked at them as business people. But I looked at their customers as lost souls again. Not if they were just eating, but if they were drinking. And I would just pay attention. And you've been there. You see a lot of guys and women. They're sloppy. They're drunk. They're acting like fools. SNL kind of does a skit on that a lot, actually. Not that I watch SNL a lot, but sometimes they do a skit of the people at the end who are smashed and they're all hitting on each other. And I used to look at them and go, what the hell is going on in your life that you ended up in this situation, regardless what age? But now I'm turning 21, and I remember at this point I've been going in and out of bars my entire life. Since basically 2, my parents owned a bar till, my mother and father got a divorce, but my father sold his bar. I get confused. Is it 13, 14 years old? I don't know. And then he ended up going right back into the bar industry doing vending. So, I was basically in bars, nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs my entire life. I was 21 and a couple of my buddies were working. And I knew a bunch of people in Florida. I also knew tons of different bar owners, but I couldn't go in those bars or some of the nightclubs because they thought I was 21 for many years, when the reality was I wasn't, because I had a fake ID. So I had to avoid all these different places throughout Central Florida, including gentlemen's clubs, mind you. And some of my friends were working or whatever the case may be, and then I was 21 and I went solo. And I would sometimes hit nightclubs by myself. I wouldn't even tell people. I ended up I had a Grand National, which was a really nice car at the point in time, and then I got a Mercedes convertible. And I actually would go to all different clubs in Orlando, even Eatonville, which is an all-black area. I think that's one of the first American black cities or something like that. It's near Maitland in Florida, Winter Park area. And I had friends that I'd work out with, big black dudes that were really cool. And if I went there, I literally was the only white dude, but there were a ton of people there. I mean, tons of people. And you could buy alcohol there real late. To make a long story short, I was 21 and Manigan's was starting to pop, which is a new club in downtown Disney, which had a spinning dance floor. And I think it got nightclub of the whole East Coast, like one of the hippest, coolest places. And I knew one of the girls there that managed it. She was super cool. She was dating this pilot I knew. And she'd get me in. She'd walk me right through the back door. And I was going back and forth with my friends, and it was my birthday, and everyone's trying to make these plans, and I just went solo. It was weird. And I went to Manigan's. And there was tons of people there, and I even knew a lot of people there. And we had this designated area where I'd go and just, I knew, and then people were buying drinks and this and that. I don't know what the hell was on my mind that night. But I remember turning 21. And then I remember sitting there, and then, I felt like, I goof around, and I wrote about this in my book, The Wingman, that I felt like a veteran. Like when I turned 21, I felt like I was 40. I was already completely exhausted from the nightclub industry. And I was dating my ex-wife at the time, but she'd go to college and she had a career. But I was just like, oh my God, I'm 21. It's over for me. Like my mindset. But I remember looking at everybody. And again, everybody's having a great time. And this nightclub was slamming. I mean, this thing held hundreds, if not thousands of people. Manigan's in its heyday, downtown Disney. And I knew the waitresses. I knew I just knew everybody there. And they were treating me incredible. And they kept looking for all my friends. They're like, hey, where's this guy? Where's this buddy? And I hung out with a lot of New Yorkers. I hung out with a lot of guys that lifted weights. And they were all looking for him. And they kept expecting me to say, hey, they're on their way or they're coming. And I was just like, I just came out here, whatever. So I remember sitting, and there's this one spot we took over, this one corner, and then the dance floor would spin. And what I loved about it is the truth was all different people would spin towards you. And it was all different. I mean, you had so many different types of women there. You had women that were coming in from all over the country. And you had women that were also that worked at Disney, which were all different type of nationalities. And then you had locals as well. And the dance floor would keep spinning, and then different women would appear. They would dance in and out, get on and off the floor. And it wasn't even that I was there necessarily to always hit on women. It was just a very cool thing. But as everybody kept spinning, I kept looking at them. And then I almost had an outer body experience. Is that what they call it? And I said, I was saying to myself, oh my God, look at all these people. They're dancing, they're drunk, they're this and that. These poor lost souls. And then I almost saw myself spinning on the dance floor, looking at myself and saying, no, you're the lost soul. What are you here for? What are you doing here? Why can't you escape this? Like, what makes you think you're any better than anybody else? Because I had a drink in my hand. I wasn't into drugs. And I'm not going to say it was an addiction, but I had to go out a lot on weekends. And my ex-wife at the time was wonderful. And, we were kind of on and off at that point just because she was younger and I would just lived a totally different lifestyle than her. And I wasn't even necessarily, I don't even know if I was dating her for sure there or not. But I really thought about that. Always kind of looking at everybody else. And I wouldn't say I was looking down on them, but I think I was. But actually, I was kind of the loneliest of everyone at that point in time. Now, that doesn't mean I was lonely because I still had tons of friends, wonderful family members and friends. But it was lonely from the perspective of kind of not exposing myself for who I truly was and kind of feeling, kind of hiding who I truly was as well, I guess you could say. And then as time went on in my life, especially now, I do a lot of traveling. I've done tons of traveling in the last 10 years. I mean, legit, traveling all over North America, at least. I mean, at this point, I'm probably at thousands of cities. I've hit every state, I think, except Montana. But sometimes in a week I hit, I'll just tell you this week, for instance, I'm hitting, what did I have? I was in Florida, I hit New York. I just landed in Boston the next day. Next I have Calgary. Next I have California. Back to Florida, back to the Panhandle, back to San Diego. But that's like in a week. So I hit everywhere, and I go everywhere, and I do everything. And so, for instance, I was just eating some tacos late at night because I actually was fortunate. I went to Italy in Boston, which is one of my favorite joints in the whole damn country. I love Italy. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a great place to eat Italian food. All these different sections that you can eat of food from Italy and from the United States. And it's just delicious. And it's in the Peru building. And I was working not far from there. But I was still hungry. So I was just recently sitting on the corner having a margarita and eating some tacos. And I seen a bunch of people. And they're eating. Some are smashed, drunk. The hotel scene. And again, for a second, I said, oh my goodness, these poor lost souls. You know what I mean? Maybe they need God. Maybe they need this. Maybe they need this. And they wouldn't be in this situation. And then again, I looked at myself and said, well, you're alone sitting here. Now, I'm in a wonderful relationship, actually. So I don't have any insecurities or anything like when I was in my early 20s or any of that. But I will say that, again, I sometimes feel like I'm always chasing something. And I've discussed this in my past podcasts. And I don't even know what I'm going after. I don't know if I'm trying to escape or if I'm trying to find something. It has nothing to do with religion either. It's myself. And the more I kind of think about myself as, I'm not saying I'm even a lost soul, because I've kind of confronted I'm actually pretty good now at this age, especially confronting myself and calling myself out on all my bullshit. I argue with myself all the time because as soon as I start to think stupid things, I'm like, you're an asshole, you're a jagoff. This is the way, you know what in my opinion, and I don't think a lot of people do that. But I am exhausted from judging others and becoming the analyzer, too, with a big A on my chest. And what I discovered, even through my podcast, my videos, is I really just want to truly help people. And it's helping people a lot of times is easy to say, but I think sometimes you help people by exposing who you are and what you've kind of gone through, but realizing you're still kind of going through it. Because I think a lot of times with public speakers, religious figures, they're like, hey, I did this in my past, and then I saw this light, or I did this, and then everything changed for me, and now I'm on this path. And it's been wonderful. I have a great marriage, and I have this and that, and now everything's hunky-dory, or whatever the bullshit pitch is, which I find sickening after a while. Just personally, I can't take that shit. Because most people I know, and I know some very successful people, I know a lot of bust-outs. A lot of people telling you a lot of things are full of shit. They're great at telling you what's great, but they're not great at living it. And as you know that as well, hopefully, you're not stupid. But the truth is, no matter who I am or what I've done in my past, I sometimes repeat and keep repeating. And that's, I think, a part of our life. And I think we have to understand that we're not always going to change, I guess you could say, for the better or the worse. We're going to have good times, and I talk about this, God, all the time regarding fitness. You're going to have good workouts, bad workouts. That's per day, per week, per month, per year. But I think in life in general, we're going to have, good days, bad days, same thing, good months, bad months, and so on. But I think if we really pay more attention to ourselves and quit judging others, really quit judging others and worry about us setting example, or not even setting an example, just being who we are. Because the more shit I realized I talked about others, the more full of shit I became. And I always said, whatever I say almost came back and hit me in the face. I'd say this about something or someone, and then I'd end up being that person or doing that thing. And I don't know if you've ever been through that, but that's the reality of my life a lot of times. And I have some close friends that have hit hard times off and on, and we used to make fun of them all the time. And instead of laughing with them, I found myself laughing at them. But what was interesting about my perspective was I would always throw myself in the mix and try to always let everybody know I'm no better than them. Because I really believe at times anything can happen in life. And I've had success at a young age, and I've had huge failures at a young age, and then I had huge success kind of in maybe my 30s, and then failed again. Now that I'm in my 50s, I don't really look at it like success or failure anymore. I just look at life is just living it and being healthy and being able to enjoy certain things. And again, regardless if you're a stranger, a family member, a friend, a colleague, I want to treat everybody with the same amount of respect. And sometimes I do catch myself being disrespectful to people across the board. That could be family members, friends, colleagues, and strangers. Doesn't matter. And that's just how I feel at the moment, and I can't beat myself over it, but I really do feel a lot better when I'm so much more understanding that they're not lost souls. They're actually human beings, and so am I. And they deserve respect and love. And I wrote about this before, even in my books, that no matter who you meet in your life, including yourself, you may be a son, a daughter to parents, obviously. You have grandparents. You may have kids, right? You have friends. People out there really love you. You know what I mean? And you love them. That's just the truth of the matter. So when you run across people, and it could even be homeless, because I was in Manhattan the other day filming Times Square, and I see all these homeless people, and it almost like I walk past them and I almost want to cry. It emotionally destroys me. And then I see, just a lot of things, and I'm like, I don't know how they ended up in that situation, but it breaks my heart. But they are a human being, and they have parents, and people out there, I'm sure, love them. And who knows what they've been through. So, anyways, I don't have to go on and on. I think you kind of get the point here regarding my lost souls thing here is, I think a lot of us, for the most part, are lost souls, no matter who we are at different points in our life. I don't care if you're flat broke. I don't care if you're a billionaire. Some of the wealthiest dudes I know are some of the loneliest dudes I've ever met. Because what I think happens a lot of times with wealthier men is people do just expect to get things from them or want to be friends with them for money. And that could go for being a celebrity or being, a lot of different things. And I ran into somebody in Hawaii recently doing, I was climbing up one of these mountains. What the hell was that called? I'm horrible with a memory. And we ran into this wonderful couple, and they were he was a dentist, and his wife, I think, was just, maybe helped him and was a mother. Very nice couple. And he was just talking to us, and we were, I was kind of, doing my crazy shit. I'm going up with no shirt on, videotaping, and my girlfriend Rhea, we're kind of crazy people, whatever. Telling them who knows, we just got a massage, and we like doing this, try this, we're in Hawaii, we just left, this part of Hawaii, now we're over here, and they're like, wow, and we're going to go over there, my crazy antics. And then he goes, he said it's very interesting because what he found in his life becoming more and more successful is people becoming more and more phony around him and just not liking him for who he is, not wanting something from him. And I said, that's quite an interesting perspective, And you hear about that all the time with celebrities and very extremely wealthy people, and maybe he's wealthy, I don't know. He didn't sound like he was extremely wealthy, but he was very nice. But I mean, that he sounded like an average guy that just felt like every time people wanted something from him to a certain degree, that it was hard for him to build certain relationships. And I was like, wow, that's interesting, because I don't feel that, but I understand his point of view, which is kind of interesting. So my point being with him is everything in life, how you look at people, or how we all look at people, is much different. We all look at people differently, is what I should say. Sorry, not to get confusing. So how do you look at people? Do you look at them as, a lot of times wanting something from you? Are you looking at them as somebody who wants to be friends with you? Or you look at them as being, whatever the case may be? I get it. But, sometimes the vibe you're sending out is kind of the vibe that counts most, in my opinion. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, you might want to check out my YouTube channels. I've been doing a lot of traveling again, putting up a lot of new videos, a lot of fitness stuff, but I've also been doing a lot of new restaurants I've been going to, and lots of fun, different things. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you could leave a comment, I'd love to connect with anybody or try to help them in any way I could, and I'd love to be, I love people helping me, because I'm always open-minded. I need as much help as I can get as far as information goes, and I love that type of stuff. So, yeah, that's all I got for you. Take care, and if you're traveling, safe travels.